A lot has changed with the rise of feminism over the past couple of decades. And one of the most important shifts that we have noticed in the last couple of decades is the shift in cultural focus. And this shift in focus was not accidental, it was very, very intentional. That shift went from men to women. And in many ways, this shift was very necessary. For many centuries, women actually did not have the same opportunities or legal protection, same economical stability or social freedom as men enjoyed in those times. So there was a real need to support these women on those fronts and elevate them, to create these structures that allowed for women to thrive in our society alongside their male counterparts. And in our times, and in current times all around the world, we only just are starting to see this happen, this shift. So it's not yet time to stop supporting women. But in the West, we have come a long way. Many women are highly educated or leading big companies. And we also now see women compete in all sports. And overall, modern women are very independent. They're very capable and powerful. So in many ways today, men and women are equal. And of course, still not everywhere and not in every country or context. But in large parts of the Western world, we are much closer to equality than ever before. However, that is when I started to notice something subtle that not many people are talking about. But before I dive deeper into this video, make sure to like and subscribe to support my mission to let men be heard and help women wake up. It feels like in our attempt to correct inequality, we have slightly overshot how we celebrate women in comparison to men. Because what we see culturally is that achievements or wins of women are overly celebrated in comparison to men. The achievements of women are amplified. We see it in the news, we see it in sports coverages, we see it in my own industry, in the film world. We see it in general business or entrepreneurship. When an all-woman sports team wins, it is a hugely celebrated and talked about cultural shift and event. Or, for example, when a film is written by women, produced by women, or directed by women, or it's an all-female team. This is being celebrated as something groundbreaking. And again, there's nothing wrong with celebrating that, because yes, it is something that we should celebrate. But again, when a men's sports team wins, or when a CEO sets up a highly impactful business, when a male entrepreneur succeeds in an incredible way, or when a film is produced or created by an all-male team, the culture in our current society responds very, very differently. Instead of celebrating it, there's often a frame that questions it. And sometimes, in some rare cases, it's even described as reinforcing patriarchy. And this is something that modern feminism will push against even harder, nullifying the success of these men. And sometimes it's even labeled as being toxic masculinity, over-competitive, or taking away from the success or limelight of women. But in most cases, the success of men is completely ignored. And as I mentioned in some conversations, the success of a man is even proposed to be taken away from the success of a woman, as if the visibility of a man equals the invisibility of a woman. And this is where the unfair imbalance begins. If we truly strive for equality between men and women, then a win should be a win regardless of who achieves it. If we celebrate women for being competent, strong, and capable, then we should celebrate men for exactly the same reasons. Otherwise, what we are communicating as a society is that women are still in need of special care and amplification in order to succeed. All the while communicating that men do not deserve celebration or acknowledgement or support. And in some cases, it's even worse because we frame their pride and their win and their success as patriarchy, as control, and as domination. And this makes me wonder that if underneath all of this is still the mindset and the thought that we see women as the weaker gender, who needs support, who needs elevation, who needs more highlighting of their milestones and of their wins and successes, while men are expected to succeed quietly because men win by default, right? And men have had success for centuries. So why should we even highlight that or celebrate that? It is as if we think that success comes easier for men. And we as a society need to become aware that this dynamic is creating something deep within men. It is creating men who feel disconnected, unvalued, not needed in our society. It creates men who feel that their achievements are automatically minimized just because they were born a man. And it is giving men the message that expressing pride is unacceptable. It tells men that confidence is arrogance and that competitiveness is toxic masculinity. And what it tells modern men most is that their ambitions, their dreams, their desire to achieve should stay hidden, should not be spoken about, and should not be communicated about. And here's another contradiction that we need to look at as a society. We as a society currently praise and celebrate traits like competence, confidence, assertiveness, and sometimes even dominance when it comes in women. But when it shows up in men, we label it as toxic, as dominance, as patriarchy, as something that should be terminated. Now, the odd thing is that when this shows up in women, we call it empowerment. We call it breaking barriers. We call it strength. Some even call it the boss babe era. So this got me to question, if the behavior is not the problem, then what is? It seems that the gender that is expressing the behavior is what determines if it's a problem. It seems that it is about the gender who expresses this behavior, whether we praise it or criticize it. And as we see today in our society, over time, this conditions men and women. In our society, women are encouraged to become more aggressive, more assertive, more dominant. All of the traits that are disconnecting them from their inherent and healthy feminine energy. In career perspectives, in education, this might be very effective. But in relationships, to family or to friends or to men, this is not helpful. Now, what we see happen between these women and modern men is that it is blurring polarity. These traits create competitiveness between the partners. We see masculine energy against masculine energy, and that will always clash. That does not work. Instead of collaborating with each other, which is what we as men and women inherently are meant to do within polarity, from the masculine and from the feminine energy. Now, what effect does this all have on modern men? It is that modern men are dimming down their light. They're dimming down their successes and their achievements. Men are avoiding to appear too confident, and men are avoiding to appear too dominant. Men are actively avoiding to celebrate their wins out loud or in public because they're trying to avoid getting cancelled or being seen as toxic or as the problem. And what we see now is that men are disengaging, not just from women, but from society at large. Because why would you want to stay somewhere where you don't seem to be wanted or needed? The sad thing is that we see men, modern men, now actively being disconnected from their masculine energy. Not because that is something that they want, but because society forces them to. It is not that men want to dominate, but men do want to have a safe space where they're accepted, where they're valued for their masculine energy, where they can feel prideful and celebrate their victories. And all of these aspects that I named beforehand are very, very, very important values to men. We need to become aware that when men feel like their successes are constantly being downplayed, or that their pride of a victory must be suppressed constantly, that this doesn't mean equality. This is far from equality. This is creating quiet resentment in men. And what that leads to is that modern men are withdrawing. It creates quiet resentment because of the feeling of not being valued and appreciated. And what this does to modern men is that it causes them to withdraw. And you might think, who cares? Let them leave. Well, that is exactly the toxic mindset that got us where we are now in the first place. There's something that we do not seem to understand in our modern day and age, in our current society, is that equality does not mean shrinking one group and lifting another up. It doesn't mean pushing men down and lifting women up. We need to understand one thing very clearly about equality. When a man succeeds, it is not an attack on women. And when a woman succeeds, it is not an attack on men. There is enough room at the top for both, and we need both at the top. Believe me, because men and women are not competitors. They are collaborators. Now get this in your head. We're not competing for one single spotlight. It's not like a super tiny spotlight that only has space for women or only has space for men. It has space for partnership and for collaboration. We should stop forcing men to step aside so that women can shine. And we should also not force women to shrink so that men can feel comfortable around them. True equality is not selective approval. It is consistent standards. It is celebrating competence, effort, talent, regardless of gender. And if we fail to do that as a society, we continue to create division where a beautiful and unique cooperation could exist. Now, for my ladies, remember, men are not your competitors. When men are celebrated or succeed, it is not an attack on you. It is not taking away an opportunity from you, and it's not dimming your light. Again, equality doesn't mean shrinking men to elevate women. You can advocate for women's empowerment, all the while still giving men the space to celebrate their wins and achievements. Remember that true strength, like the strength that you have inside of you, is never ever threatened by someone else, and also not by men. Now, I want to make a promise with you today, for both my men out there and for my ladies out there. Let's stop filtering behavior through the lens of gender before we decide on its value. Let's decide to celebrate excellence and not gender categories or labels. Let's challenge narrative that frame one gender as inherently virtuous while rendering the other as inherently problematic. And let's become aware and recognize that cultural overcorrections, even when well-intended, can create and cause more imbalance and deepen the divide as we are experiencing today between men and women. If we truly want equality, it cannot be selective. It must be consistent, and it must be fair. And it must leave room for everyone, including you over there, to shine bright. Thank you so much for watching this video today. I hope that it was helpful. If it was, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel to help me get my message out to a wider audience so that we can find each other again in healthy connection and understanding. If you enjoy the videos that I'm making, there's a couple of ways that you can support my work. You can find them down in the pinned comment below or in the description box. But the easiest way is to sign up for the book that I'm writing called The Shadow Side of Feminism. In this book, I explore if feminism has unintentionally cast a shadow over modern men and what we can do as a society to rectify that. If you're interested in supporting me that way, you can find the link to the mailing list down in the description box below. If you enjoyed this video, I would suggest that you check out this video right here next because it perfectly aligns with this topic. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.